My husband let his brother propose at our wedding after I said no and is now asking for forgiveness. What should I do? I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the delicate lace veil that cascaded down my back. The sun streamed through the window, casting a golden glow over the room. My heart fluttered with excitement and nerves. Today was the day I would marry Liam, my sweet, kind-hearted Liam. The man who had shown me nothing but love and support since the day we met. The ceremony was held in a quaint chapel, adorned with white roses and twinkling fairy lights. As I walked down the aisle, my heart swelled with joy. The look in Liam's eyes as he watched me approach made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. The vows we exchanged were heartfelt and genuine, filled with promises of love and commitment. It was a perfect ceremony, the kind of day I had always dreamed of. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception venue, a beautiful garden with lush greenery and colorful blooms. The scent of roses and jasmine filled the air, mingling with the sound of laughter and music. Our families and friends gathered to celebrate our union, and the atmosphere was filled with joy and love. It was everything I had hoped for and more. Liam and I made our rounds, greeting guests and thanking them for sharing this special day with us. Liam's older brother, Ben, was there too, of course. He was Liam's best man, and while I appreciated his presence, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I always had around him. Ben was difficult. He tried too hard to be funny, often making jokes that fell flat or were outright inappropriate. He craved attention, always wanting to be the center of it. He reminded me of Screech from Saved by the Bell, but 10 times more annoying. Despite my reservations about Ben, I had always tried to be polite and cordial. I knew he had a difficult childhood. When Liam was diagnosed with high-functioning autism, their parents lavished attention on him, leaving Ben feeling neglected. As a result, Ben acted out during their teenage years, getting into trouble and demanding their parents' attention. This dynamic persisted into adulthood, with their parents often siding with Ben, even when he was in the wrong. Liam, ever the people-pleaser, never spoke up for himself. He just wanted to keep the peace. 4 weeks before the wedding, we were having dinner with Liam's parents and Ben. It was a pleasant evening, filled with laughter and discussions about our future plans. Ben seemed unusually excited, and it wasn't long before he revealed why. "I've been thinking about proposing to Melody," he announced, a wide grin on his face. "Oh, that's wonderful," Liam's mother exclaimed. "How do you plan to do it?" Ben turned to Liam with a mischievous glint in his eye. "I was hoping to do it at the reception." I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. "You do that, and my brothers will throw you out of the venue." But Ben didn't laugh. He looked offended, and that's when I realized he was serious. Before I could say anything, Liam, ever the accommodating brother, said, "Of course you can, Melody will love it." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I touched Liam's arm gently and said, "We'll talk about it later." He looked confused but nodded. After dinner, I pulled Liam aside. "Liam, we need to talk about Ben's proposal." "What about it?" he asked, still puzzled. "It's in bad taste, Liam. A wedding day is supposed to be about the bride and groom. Having someone else propose takes away from that. It's not fair to us or to our guests." Liam's face fell. "I didn't think of it that way. I just wanted to make Ben happy." "I know," I said softly. "But this is our day. How about we help Ben plan a special party for his proposal instead? It would be more memorable and appropriate." Liam's eyes lit up. "That's a great idea. I'll talk to Ben." Relieved, I thought the matter was settled. Liam spoke to Ben and explained our plan. Ben seemed to agree, and I felt a sense of calm returning. The days leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of final preparations and excitement. Yet I couldn't shake the lingering worry about Ben's proposal. I trusted Liam, but I knew how easily influenced he could be, especially when it came to his family. Liam's struggle was evident. He wanted to make everyone happy, a trait that I loved and sometimes found frustrating. He adored his brother and wanted to support him, but he also knew how important our wedding day was to me. It was a delicate balance, and I could see the stress wearing on him. One evening, as we sat together planning the final details, Liam sighed heavily. "I'm just worried about Ben. He's been acting strange since we talked about the proposal." I looked at him, concern etched on my face. "What do you mean?" "He's been distant and moody. I think he's upset that we're not letting him propose at the wedding." "Liam, this is our day," I reminded him gently. "We've already offered to help him plan something special. He needs to respect that." Liam nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. He was caught between his love for me and his loyalty to his brother, and it was tearing him apart. As the wedding day approached, the pressure from Liam's family intensified. His parents, who had always favored Ben, were relentless in their subtle yet persistent efforts to convince Liam to change his mind. At a family gathering a week before the wedding, his mother cornered him. "Liam, you know how much this means to Ben. Can't you talk to her again? It's just a proposal after all." Liam sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mom, we've already discussed this. It's not appropriate to propose at someone else's wedding. But think about how happy it would make him. Don't you want your brother to be happy?" "I do, but not at the expense of our wedding day," Liam insisted. His father chimed in. "Son, sometimes you need to compromise. Marriage is about making sacrifices, right?" I watched the exchange from a distance, my heart aching for Liam. I knew he was struggling, and the pressure from his parents wasn't helping. I decided it was time to step in. I approached them, my voice calm but firm. "We've already made a compromise by offering to help Ben plan a special proposal event. This is our wedding day, and we want it to be about us." His mother pursed her lips, clearly unhappy with my intervention, but she didn't argue further. I took Liam's hand and led him away, hoping to ease some of the tension. Determined to find a solution that would satisfy everyone, I reached out to Ben directly. We met at a cafe, and I could tell he was still upset about not being able to propose at the wedding. "Ben, I understand that you want to make your proposal special," I began, trying to keep my tone empathetic. "But our wedding day isn't the right time or place for it. We've already offered to help you plan a separate event. It will be more personal and meaningful for you and Melody." Ben sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I get that, but I've been planning this for months. I wanted it to be a big surprise." "And it can still be a surprise," I assured him. "We can create a beautiful event where you can propose. Melody will appreciate the thought and effort you put into making it special for her." He looked at me, a mix of frustration and resignation in his eyes. "Fine. We'll do it your way." Relieved, I thought the matter was finally resolved. I informed Liam of our conversation, and he seemed more at ease. We focused on the final preparations for the wedding, hoping that everything would go smoothly. The wedding day arrived, and everything went off without a hitch. The ceremony was beautiful, the reception lively and joyous. As the evening progressed, it was time for the speeches. Ben, as the best man, was up first. He started with a series of awkward jokes and puns that made the guests chuckle politely. I tried to focus on the positive, appreciating the effort he was putting into it. Part of his speech involved moving around the tables, engaging the guests directly. I should have known something was up, but in the spirit of the day, I chose to ignore the red flags. As Ben neared the end of his speech, he stopped in front of Melody. My heart sank as I saw him reach into his pocket. Time seemed to slow as he dropped to one knee and pulled out a ring. "Melody, will you marry me?" The garden fell silent, all eyes on Ben and Melody. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How could he do this? How could he ignore our agreement and hijack our special day? I couldn't stay there. I couldn't watch as the attention shifted from our celebration to Ben's proposal. Without a word, I turned and stormed out of the reception. My vision blurred with tears, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my mother. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "I just need a moment," I choked out. Liam came running after me, his face a mix of panic and regret. "I'm so sorry," he pleaded. "They told me it'd be fine. They pressured me and I didn't want to upset you." I shook my head, too hurt to respond. My mother offered to drive me home and I accepted. As we left, I told Liam, "Don't call me, I'll call you." Update. A few days after the wedding, the events were still a whirlwind in my mind, each memory tainted with the sharp sting of betrayal. The day that should have been solely ours was overshadowed by an act that spoke of selfishness and disrespect. In an attempt to seek some closure or perhaps a flicker of understanding, I agreed to meet Ben alone. It was a chilly afternoon, the overcast sky mirroring the gloom that had settled over my spirit since the reception. We chose a quiet corner of the cafe we had frequented during happier times. The place was almost empty, a soft murmur of distant conversations barely brushing against the clink of coffee cups. Ben was already there, his figure slumped, his eyes staring into the void of his untouched coffee. As I approached, my heart pounded with a tumult of emotions, anger, sadness, but mostly a profound sense of betrayal. "Ben," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk about what happened at the wedding." He looked up, his expression weary. "I know, and I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. The apology sounded sincere, but it did little to quell the storm inside me. "Sorry?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly despite my efforts to remain composed. "Do you understand what you've done? You promised me, Ben. You looked me in the eyes and promised that you wouldn't propose at our wedding." Ben shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I know, I did, and I meant it at the time, but..." His voice trailed off, unable to find an excuse that would suffice. But what? I pressed, needing to hear him say it, needing to understand how he could justify turning our wedding day into the backdrop for his own agenda. It just seemed like the perfect moment, he finally said, almost in a whisper. Everyone was there, everyone was happy, and I thought, you thought it would be okay to steal our moment? To disregard my feelings? To break your promise? Each question was sharper than the last, my frustration boiling over. Ben sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. I thought you'd be happy for me, for us. The simplicity of his misunderstanding was almost laughable. A wedding day is about the couple getting married. It's our day, our special moment. What made you think it was appropriate to shift the focus from us to you without even considering how it would affect me? Affect Liam? Ben looked down, the guilt finally settling in his features. I see that now. I was selfish, and I'm sorry. I just wanted everything to be perfect for Melody. And in doing so, you spoiled what was supposed to be a perfect day for us, I said, the hurt clear in my voice. Did you ever think about Liam in all this? Your brother, who struggles so much with conflict and pleasing everyone? He was silent, the impact of his actions dawning on him. I didn't. I thought he was okay with it, after what he said at dinner that night. Liam tries to make everyone happy, especially you. He often doesn't express his true feelings because he doesn't want to upset anyone. My voice softened as I thought of my husband, caught between his loyalty to his brother and his love for me. Ben nodded slowly, the regret visible. I've put him in a tough spot, haven't I? And you? I've put you through so much. Yes, you have. And I don't know how we're going to get past this. You broke my trust, Ben. And worse, you've made Liam part of this mess. The cafe was silent for a moment, the weight of the conversation dampening the air around us. Ben finally spoke, his voice resolute. I want to make it right. Tell me what I can do to fix this. I looked at him, searching for any sign of insincerity. It's not about quick fixes, Ben. It's about understanding the impact of your actions. You need to respect boundaries, respect what Liam and I have. You need to step back and think about others before yourself. Ben nodded, his eyes meeting mine. I'll do better, I promise. I hope you can, I said, standing up to leave. For the sake of our family, for the sake of your relationship with your brother, and for your future with Melody. You need to start thinking about the people you love as much as you think about what you want. As I walked away from the cafe, the cool air felt refreshing against the flush of emotion on my cheeks. The conversation had been difficult, necessary, but far from comforting. The road to forgiveness and trust was long, and I wasn't sure where to start. But I knew it would begin with a conversation with Liam, where we would have to navigate the damage done to our relationship together. How we would rebuild that trust was uncertain, but one thing was clear. It would take time, understanding, and a lot of healing. As I made my way home from the cafe, the cold silence from Liam's family became increasingly oppressive. It wasn't just the absence of any attempt to reach out that stung, it was their complete disregard for the gravity of their actions at our wedding. This silence was deafening, an implicit endorsement of Ben's behavior, and a clear dismissal of my feelings. In the days that followed, my phone remained disturbingly quiet. No calls, no messages, nothing from Liam's family. Even Liam's attempts to communicate were punctuated with hesitation, his messages a mix of apologies and attempts to explain his family's perspective. Each conversation left me more disillusioned about the possibility of reconciliation, not just with Ben, but with the entire family. On social media, the narrative was starkly different. The focus was all on Ben and Melody's engagement. Pictures of the proposal at our wedding flooded their feeds, accompanied by congratulatory messages and heart emojis. It was as if our wedding was merely a backdrop to their moment. Comments like, "What a perfect surprise," and "So romantic to do it at the wedding," filled their posts, each one a needle to my already wounded heart. What hurt the most was the lack of acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. It seemed as though Liam's family had created a narrative in which I was the antagonist for not sharing in their joy. Conversations I overheard or snippets from family chats that Liam showed me in an attempt to bridge understanding only revealed a deeper disconnect. They called me unreasonable, even selfish, for not appreciating the beautiful moment Ben had created. This perspective was not just hurtful, but alienating. It painted a clear picture of a family that valued spectacle over sensitivity, and public moments over personal integrity. Their inability to see the intrusion on our special day as problematic highlighted a fundamental difference in values that seemed irreconcilable. The realization that they saw me as the one at fault was baffling. How could they not see that their actions were a betrayal, not just of social norms but of personal trust? Their celebration of the proposal, without a single word of apology or acknowledgement of my feelings, was a clear sign of their priorities and loyalties. In response, I began to reflect on what this meant for my future in this family. How could I integrate into a family that so blatantly disregarded my feelings? How could Liam and I build a life together with the shadow of his family's insensitivity always lurking? These were questions that plagued me, each one chipping away at the foundation of the life I thought I was building with Liam. As the days turned into weeks, the lack of outreach from his family cemented my feelings of isolation. Their unrepentant attitude and selfish behavior were not just hurtful. They were indicative of a deeper pattern of disregard for anyone outside their immediate circle of approval. This realization brought me to a difficult decision. If there was to be any hope of salvaging our relationship, not just between Liam and me, but between me and his family, there needed to be a clear, honest conversation about boundaries, respect, and the importance of acknowledging and rectifying harm when it's done. Liam would need to understand and support this need for respect and acknowledgement if we were to move forward. I needed to communicate to Liam that this wasn't just about a ruined wedding day, but about what that day represented. A lack of respect for our union and for me as a person. Our next steps would need to include setting clear boundaries with his family, with consequences for crossing them. Only through these measures could we hope to rebuild trust and respect, essential foundations for any relationship, especially one marred by such a profound betrayal. As challenging as these conversations would be, they were necessary. I was prepared to stand firm, to demand the respect and consideration I deserved. If Liam and his family were unable to meet these basic requirements, I would have to reconsider what my future would look like, possibly even without them. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was resolved to ensure it was one where my dignity and self-respect were no longer up for debate. In the days that followed, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion. My side of the family was furious with Liam and his family. Meanwhile, Liam's family was busy congratulating Ben and Melody, their Facebook feeds filled with pictures of the proposal. It was like our wedding didn't matter to them at all. I was prepared to file for an annulment and move on. But then, I received an email from Liam. He poured his heart out, explaining how Ben and their parents had pressured him relentlessly until he finally caved. He admitted he was wrong for not coming to me and apologized profusely. "You were so stressed and I didn't want to worry you," he wrote. "Please give me another chance." Now I'm torn. I love Liam, and I know he's telling the truth. He's a horrible liar, and his sincerity shines through. But can I rebuild the trust that was broken? Can I persuade him that a family should never do that to one of their own? As I sit here, staring at his email, I know I have a difficult decision to make. Is our marriage salvageable? Only time will tell. Drawing from the story, there are several significant experiences and lessons that offer valuable insights into navigating personal relationships and conflicts within a family dynamic. One of the central issues is the failure of communication between family members. Clear, honest and open communication is crucial in any relationship, particularly in managing expectations and resolving conflicts. The bride's attempt to communicate her concerns about the proposal and set boundaries was a step in the right direction, though it was ultimately disregarded. The story also highlights the importance of setting and enforcing boundaries within familial and marital relationships. Boundaries help protect personal integrity and ensure that relationships are mutually respectful. When boundaries are crossed, as they were in this story, it can lead to significant emotional distress and conflict. This underscores the complexity of family dynamics, especially when one family member's needs or behaviors overshadow others. Liam's difficulty in balancing his loyalty to his family and his new wife underscores the challenges that can arise in relationships where familial interference is common. The impact of external approval and pressure, as seen through Liam's family's need for external validation on social media, significantly impacted the couple's relationship. This shows how external pressures and the pursuit of approval can distort personal priorities and relationships. Despite the shock and betrayal, the bride's emotional journey from contemplation and decision-making reflects resilience. Facing betrayal, especially from loved ones, is profoundly painful, yet her response demonstrates strength in advocating for her own needs and emotional well-being. While the bride felt wronged, the story also points to the importance of understanding other perspectives. Although not excusable, Ben's actions stemmed from his personal insecurities and desire for a memorable engagement. Understanding the underlying motivations does not justify the actions, but can aid in resolving conflicts and healing. Ultimately, the bride's realization that she must demand respect and consider her future happiness speaks to the importance of maintaining personal integrity and self-respect in relationships. My wife socially isolates herself and hates people for no good reason, which is starting to give me an ick. Despite being 28 years old, my wife and I have had our share of disagreements, especially with regard to socializing and people. I'm a social butterfly that is constantly excited to meet and spend time with new people. Conversely, my spouse is the complete opposite. She detests social interaction and seems to get a certain kick out of making people dislike her. She seems to be on a mission, carefully examining everyone she encounters in an attempt to reveal some ulterior motive. This is one of her habits that might escalate a small miscommunication into a major complaint that she holds very strongly. For the decade we've been together, this difference between us has been a constant backdrop to our relationship. She has misgivings about individuals, yet she hardly ever stops me from having fun in my own social life. Giving her the space she needs while I carry on interacting with the outside world in my own unique way is how I've learned to handle this part of our relationship. Sometimes she goes out with me, especially if there's another couple. Even in these situations though, her contempt is evident. For example, she has never been friends with my friend's girlfriend, even though we have made multiple attempts to get them out on double dates. When the COVID pandemic hit, her company shifted to remote work, a change that she welcomed with open arms. The arrangement became permanent, and while she relishes the comfort of our home as her office, it has also meant that her interactions with the outside world have dwindled to almost nothing. She now ventures out only for errands or when absolutely necessary, and even then, it's often just with me. This isolation seems to be taking a toll on her. The lack of regular, diverse social interaction appears to be intensifying her negative traits. Recently, any suggestion from me that she should meet up with friends or join me for a social event is met with sharp resistance. She maintains a connection with a couple of her old friends through messages, yet she hasn't seen them in person for years, despite the fact that they live just a few minutes away. Her increasing irritability isn't just limited to refusals to socialize, it has started to seep into our daily interactions. There are days when the atmosphere at home becomes particularly strained, with tension simmering just beneath the surface. I find myself walking on eggshells, trying to gauge her mood before speaking, a stark contrast to the open and easy communication we used to share. Even with these difficulties, I realize her actions are not coming from a bad place. Instead, they may be due to some hidden worry or fear. I've thought that her critical opinions of others might be her way to guard against any letdowns or pains. This understanding has made it easier for me to respond with more kindness and patience. However, it's still a tricky job to find the middle ground between honoring her limits and urging her to move beyond her usual comfortable circle. Navigating a relationship where social preferences clash so starkly has never been simple, and as years pass, these contrasts often magnify, becoming more than just trivial disagreements. I've always known that my wife has a distinct distaste for social gatherings, a stark contrast to my own extroverted nature. Typically, to maintain peace, I've allowed her the space to opt out, choosing instead to engage socially on my own terms. This compromise, while not perfect, has served as an uneasy truce between my social appetite and her preference for solitude. However, a recent encounter has begun to challenge the delicate balance we've managed to maintain. I met a woman in college who quickly became a good friend, and her partner is equally likable. Both of them have proven to be wonderful additions to my circle, bringing with them the kind of enriching, engaging interactions that I thrive on. They proposed the idea of a double date, excited at the prospect of meeting my wife, especially since they share several interests with her. It seemed like a perfect opportunity to perhaps bridge the gap between my social world and her isolated one. Eagerly, I shared this with my wife, highlighting their commonalities in the hope of sparking her interest. However, her reaction was dishearteningly swift and harsh. She dismissed the shared interests, particularly scoffing at the books my new friend enjoyed, labeling them as trash, and declaring a preemptive dislike for someone she had never met. This response wasn't unusual for her, but it struck a different chord this time. It wasn't just disapproval I felt, but a deeper sense of disgust at the relentless negativity. It's one thing to have preferences. It's another to cultivate disdain so eagerly. This has more to do with being receptive to human interactions and experiences than it does with just having different literary tastes. Whether it comes to interests, opinions or hobbies, my friends and I have always valued our diversity. These differences don't divide us. Instead, they help us understand and respect each other more. The tough part is my wife tends to see these differences as big hurdles, which is becoming harder and harder for me to come to terms with. To be honest, it's quite exhausting. When she says something negative about others, it drains my energy bit by bit. It's tough to be around someone who is caught up in negativity, which makes me wonder about the future of our relationship if this doesn't change. Love and dedication have brought us to this point, but as her negativity increases, so does my frustration. I'm thinking about what to do next. Should I keep going with the social life alone, understanding she might not ever join this important part of my life? Or is there a way to carefully question her views to show her that differing doesn't mean lower or scary? This is a complicated balance to keep because while I want to respect her individuality, I also wish she could appreciate the happiness and growth that comes from interacting with different people. Maybe it's time for a sincere talk about how her negativity impacts our relationship. It's important for her to see that she does not need to change who she is, but she needs to show respect. Respect for my friends, for people I care about, and for the social life that gives me energy. It may also help to explore why she dislikes social activities so much. Could it be linked to a past event, insecurities, or something unspoken? Understanding the why could help us figure out the how of our future dealings. When I approach her, it's important to do so not with blame, but with an open mind. I need to tell her how important it is to me that she at least tries to understand why my friendships and social life matter so much. It's not about forcing her into situations she's uncomfortable with. Rather, it's about achieving mutual respect for what we both value. This discussion, though possibly hard, is needed to ensure our relationship can grow and adapt rather than get stuck in unspoken frustration. Our differing attitudes towards social activities indeed made our path together interesting and sometimes a bit complicated. As we deal with this constant issue, I'm still hopeful that we'll find a balance where she feels protected and listened to, and I can still have fun socializing, which motivates me. We're not trying to change each other, but we aim to understand and support each other better. Building a bridge between our worlds step by step, through each talk and every experience we share together. So, the challenge lies in finding a balance that respects her boundaries, but also encourages her to occasionally step beyond them. Not just for my happiness, but for the health of our relationship. It's about ensuring that our union is a partnership of growth and understanding, where both of us feel valued and heard. As we navigate these troubled waters, I remain hopeful that with patience and love, we can find a way forward together. Edit. It feels so exhausting to be around someone this socially miserable all the time. I love people and I'm struggling to be around someone who is so hateful. I tolerated it before, but it just seems to be getting worse. How should I navigate this? Maybe I'm doing something wrong here, and if so, please feel free to put me in my place. Here are a few collected comments that share thoughts from a wide range of viewpoints. Everyone feels that original poster and his wife in this story are going through their own pain, and there is no right or wrong. Toxic negativity is both draining and infectious. You need to tell your wife everything you just told us. Make sure she knows that the persistent negativity is bringing you down and making you start to view her in a negative light, and you don't want that. She needs to work on becoming a more accepting and easygoing person who is less judgmental. Anything less will poison your relationship over the years. Another one is, it sounds like this woman has no relationships outside of her husband. As a corollary to this, he's got to stop pushing her to socialize. I'm with her on this one. I could go the rest of my life without attending a social event and be perfectly happy. Extroverts don't seem to understand this and assume that anyone who doesn't crave constant interaction with others like they do must have a problem, and it's annoying as hell. It can actually lead to you feeling like you need to come up with a valid excuse for why you don't want to go out, which could be part of why she acts that way. That said, it's entirely possible for people with mismatched social needs to get along. My wife goes out to a karaoke bar with friends on the weekends and I hang at home with the kids. It's a perfect setup. Every now and then she'll want to show me off or something and I'll stop by for an hour, but she has pre-excused my leaving early so it's not stressful. I can handle grabbing a drink in public with random people for an hour or two. If I had to sit there while my social butterfly wife happily flit around until closing, then I'd go crazy. Double dates are also a huge issue. There's so much pressure to socialize and connect. For those of us who don't enjoy that stuff, it's somewhat akin to the anxiety others can feel going to a job interview. If he wants his introverted wife to join him more often in social outings, it is important that he understands how she feels and provides her with an escape route. She could agree on a prearranged signal that means, "We need to leave," or set the expectation up front that your couple may need to leave early. Having these options available can significantly reduce her stress. The third one. Your wife sounds a lot like my mom. I've had actual conversations with my dad where he has admitted to me that he's always had to pull the social weight in their marriage. She also loves to hate on people. Like, when she gets going, I had to unlearn a lot of that stuff as an adult. I still fall into it sometimes, so I try to watch myself. It just sounds to me like your wife needs to scale it back, or at least become more aware of it. I agree with everyone that you should talk to her about this. She may not be aware of how extreme it's gotten. While it's probably healthy on a human level to dip into hate on everyone mode, on occasion, you can't live there all the time. And you probably can't force her to be more social, but it sounds like it would probably help if she had some regular socialization in her life. The combo of work from home plus being antisocial is probably not great for her in the long run. There is a comment in response. Repeating. This is not introversion. This is someone hating people with very little reason. I'm a classic introvert. Being social is a taxing drain on me, and my idea of a good time is staying home. But not once have I said I hate everybody and that's why I don't want to socialize. What OP wrote was shockingly toxic. Last but not least. Hey, don't have kids till this is sorted out if you're thinking of having any. And wishing you the best. Oh God, imagine the kids being the target of all that negativity. Even if she doesn't subject the kids to it, there's no way any kids will have a healthy upbringing and social network in this environment, and that will have lifelong effects. OMG, those kids would be so miserable and unhealthy. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My wife's gym obsession led to her ignoring me, affecting our marriage. She finally admitted having an affair. Part 1. My wife is 30 years old and she's always worked out and been in shape, but lately I feel like it's becoming excessive. She used to regularly work out at a gym when she was in college. At some point she stopped going to the gym, I think lately just due to her schedule, and preferred to work out at home or go for runs outside. About a year and a half ago, my wife made a choice that changed how we live every day in a sneaky way. She decided to renew her gym membership and recommit to the fitness regimen that had been a big part of her life during college. Initially it seemed like a healthy way to balance the demands of her new job, which, thankfully, offered more flexible hours than her previous positions. But here's where things started to change. What started as a not too bad 3 times a week gym routine got bigger, more overwhelming over time. At first, the change was gradual enough to go unnoticed. She added a few extra gym sessions each week, explaining that the additional exercise helped her clear her mind and relieve the stress from work. Soon, she was spending weekends attending back-to-back classes, and before I fully realized what was happening, her workouts had doubled. Mornings before work and evenings after became dedicated gym times. This increase in her gym attendance seemed to correlate directly with any stress she felt. Whenever she was upset or we had an argument, her immediate response was to head to the gym. It became her refuge, a place to escape whatever was bothering her, rather than dealing with it head-on. Now, she's 4 months pregnant, and I assumed maybe her workout habits would become a bit gentler. But that's not the case. She's still as determined as ever to keep going to her gym sessions, maybe even more so than before. Being pregnant hasn't made her cut back, but rather it looks like she is even more keen on staying fit and healthy. I understand that it's safe for her to work out, especially since she was already in the habit of doing it before she got pregnant. But the intensity is not slowing down. I've tried to talk to her about my concerns, gently suggesting that it might be healthy to find a more balanced approach, especially with the baby on the way. But these conversations often don't go well. She asserts that the exercise is beneficial for her and the baby, and while I know moderate exercise is generally safe during pregnancy, the intensity and frequency of her workouts seem excessive. If she misses one of her normal gym sessions, she becomes so irritable, like a junkie not getting her fix. It's just bizarre. Truly a case of too much of a good thing. I understand that for her, exercising is more than just physical activity. It's a coping mechanism for stress and anxiety. But I worry about the toll it's taking, not just physically but on our relationship as well. The time she spends at the gym is time away from us spending together, and her emotional dependency on her workout routine makes me feel sidelined, unable to provide the support she might need. I find myself wondering about the future, about how sustainable this lifestyle will be once our child is born. Will she be able to pull back enough to balance motherhood with her personal needs, or will the gym continue to be her sanctuary, leaving me to shoulder more of the parenting responsibilities? Sure enough, she becomes upset when I mention that I think her gym habit is becoming too extreme and that I miss having time together because she's so often at the gym. It seems like she enjoys being with her gym friends more than me. Why don't we exercise together at the gym? The gym is her personal space, she says. This isn't because she's all fit and healthy while I'm unfit and overweight. My profession truly requires me to remain fit, so I also work out and maintain my fitness. I truly can't afford to ignore my health because it's essential to my job. I genuinely feel my wife's gym habits are unhealthy. She's over-exercising, and it's becoming a way for her to escape everything else in her life. Whenever something goes wrong, instead of addressing the issue head-on, she runs off to the gym. It's like she's using the gym to get a temporary mood boost, and then she leaves the problem unresolved. This avoidance has become a pattern, and it's affecting our daily lives more than she realizes. Practically speaking, her constant gym visits mean she's not around to handle her share of household responsibilities. I find myself doing all the chores and preparing meals, which I don't mind doing, but it feels imbalanced. We should be sharing these tasks, especially with a baby on the way. I know she's committed to her fitness, but there's gotta be a middle ground where she can maintain her health without neglecting our home life. Around us have started to notice the change in her behavior. Friends and family comment on how different she seems, mentioning how she sure is at the gym a lot. Her absence at social gatherings and family events hasn't gone unnoticed. Some of them have even asked me directly if everything is okay between us. hinting at the possibility of an affair with someone at the gym. While I don't believe that's the case, it's disheartening to hear such suggestions because it shows how apparent her extreme gym habits have become to everyone around us. This doesn't sound normal to me, and I'm struggling to get her to see that. She insists this is perfectly normal, brushing off my concerns and those of our friends and family. I've tried explaining that while regular exercise is healthy, her current routine goes beyond that. It's not just about physical health anymore. It's about her mental and emotional well-being, and how it's affecting our relationship and our future. We're expecting our first child, and this should be a time for us to come together and prepare for the new addition to our family. Instead, I feel like I'm navigating this journey alone. I worry about how her intense gym schedule will fit into our lives once the baby arrives. Will she continue to prioritize the gym over family time? How will we manage the added responsibilities of parenthood if she's always at the gym? I love her deeply and want to support her, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to balance my support with my concerns. I've tried to communicate this to her in a way that doesn't come off as accusatory or unsupportive, but it's challenging. Every time I bring it up, it feels like I'm questioning her judgment or her commitment to our family, which isn't my intention at all. In an ideal world, we'd find a balance where she can still enjoy her workouts while also being present in our daily lives. I want her to be happy and healthy, but I also want our relationship to thrive and for us to face our problems together, not for her to run away from them. I hope that as her pregnancy progresses, she'll see the need to adjust her routine and we can work together to create a more balanced life. For now, I'm doing my best to manage everything at home and hoping we can find a way to reconnect and prepare for the arrival of our child as a united front. Please tell me that this doesn't sound normal to you. She insists this is perfectly normal. Update 1. I mentioned my wife's intense concentration on the gym not too long ago. She spends the majority of her free time at the gym because it has become an obsession. She occasionally goes twice a day, and on nights when we argue, she sometimes goes 3 times a day to the gym rather than talking to me about it. She insists that we maintain separate workout routines. For her, the gym is a safe space, and she believes I should have my own too. Several times I've asked her to come to my gym so we could make it a shared activity, but she always says no. Now she's around 18 weeks into her pregnancy, and despite her already intense workouts before being pregnant, she's still keeping up the same pace. This is our first child, and I can't stop worrying about how my wife's strenuous exercise might affect both her and our baby, who's on the way. Some commented on my last post, speculating that she might be unfaithful. I laughed it off. Sincerely, I truly didn't think she was cheating on me. She looks like she works out a lot because she is in such amazing shape. So she's obviously going there. I had no doubts that there was no adultery involved and that her dedication to health was sincere. However, the remarks caused me to mistrust myself, sowing doubts that I was unable to ignore. When I blogged 9 days ago, I wasn't even thinking about cheating, and I felt pretty secure about the cheating issue. By contrast, I'm embarrassed to admit that after reading a lot of the comments on my last post, I thought maybe I was being overly confident about her fidelity. A few days ago, she left her phone on the kitchen counter. Normally, she always has it with her. I felt stupid and guilty, but curiosity and doubt got the best of me. I decided to do a quick swipe through her texts. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. What I found turned my stomach. She had an ongoing text conversation with a guy from the gym. I recognized his name immediately. She mentions him often, and they've become friends. She's friends with a lot of people there and even went to one of their weddings last fall. Initially, I wasn't too concerned. But as I read through the texts, my heart sank. My heart pounded as I hurriedly flicked through her messages. What I saw made my blood boil. I was furious. The messages were flirty, intimate, and crossed boundaries. They shared details and photos that no one outside a relationship should. Never wanted to know what the guy's D looked like, but I know now. The explicit content shocked me. I never wanted to know what another man's genitals looked like, but now I do. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm embarrassed and hurt. My trust has been shattered, and I don't know how to confront her about it. The idea that she could be having an emotional, possibly physical affair while pregnant with our child is devastating. I've always believed in her, in us, and this revelation has left me reeling. I keep thinking about how she uses the gym to escape, and now I wonder if it's not just from stress but from our relationship as well. The gym has become her refuge, a place where she can avoid facing the issues in our marriage and potentially seek solace in someone else. Her insistence on separate gyms suddenly makes more sense. It's not just about personal space, it's about hiding this part of her life from me. Now I'm left with a painful dilemma. Do I confront her about the texts and risk a massive fight that could stress her and the baby? Do I try to seek counseling for us, hoping we can repair the damage? Or do I let it fester inside, growing more resentful and hurt as time goes on? She was only out of the room for literally about a minute or two, so I had to scroll fast. When she came back, I confronted her immediately, asking her what the hell that conversation was about. She started yelling at me for looking at her phone, deflecting the issue back onto me. I told her she was acting so weird lately, and her gym obsession was really bothering me, so I decided to look, even though I was ashamed to admit it. I had thought I'd find nothing at all. She kept insisting, "It's nothing. It's nothing." But it didn't look like nothing to me. She seemed pretty interested in this nothing. I wanted to know if she's been fucking with this guy. For how long? She kept denying it, saying no over and over. Her denials only made me angrier. I stormed out of the house because I was so furious, but not before I slammed her phone on the ground, shattering it. She screamed at me, calling me all sorts of names for breaking her phone. In her rage, she hit me on the back as hard as she could. I left, needing to cool off. I went to my brother's house seeking refuge and a place to vent. My brother and sister-in-law were shocked by the situation, although my sister-in-law had been one of the most vocal ones about my wife's gym obsession being weird and had brought it up to me constantly. Later, I returned home. I found her in bed, shedding tears. Of course, without her phone, she couldn't call me or anyone else. Between her crying, she said stuff like, "I wasn't sure if you'd ever come back." It seemed like she was trying to play mind games, wanting me to feel bad for going. But I was too upset to let her crying affect me. Give me a break. I took her phone to get it repaired that night. Despite everything, I still felt bad about breaking it. I didn't think she deserved that, but I also couldn't shake the anger and betrayal I felt. Breaking her phone wasn't my proudest moment, but it seemed trivial compared to what I'd discovered. I still don't know how deep this goes. She won't admit to anything beyond what I saw in those texts. Was it just sexting? Bad enough? Or something more? I'm convinced it was a lot more, but she refuses to hand over her phone now and is acting like I'm the villain here. She's portraying me as some terrible monster who is abusing her because I broke her phone. While smashing it wasn't a mature reaction, I was overwhelmed with emotions. Not my proudest moment, but I honestly wanted to body slam her after she punched me. Yet, I have never, and would never actually touch her like that. I feel wounded and bewildered by the entire thing. The trust has been broken, even though I want to believe her because I love her. I used to think that her obsession with the gym was a healthy way to release her energy, but it now looks like a front for something darker. I can't help but wonder if we spent all those extra hours together at the gym. I feel ill to my stomach at the prospect. I love her deeply, and I'm committed to making this work, especially with a baby on the way. But trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. I want to believe that we can get past this, that her behavior at the gym and these texts are a cry for help, a symptom of deeper issues we need to address together. For now, I'm trying to process everything and figure out the best way forward. Our baby deserves a loving, stable home, and I'm determined to provide that. But the road ahead looks daunting, and I'm not sure where to start. I hope we can find a way to reconnect and rebuild the trust that's been broken. I'm sorting out what to do next. Do I insist on seeing her phone once it's repaired, or do I let it go and try to rebuild our trust? Part of me wants to demand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Another part of me is terrified of what I might find out. I keep replaying our confrontation in my mind, analyzing every word and every action, trying to make sense of it all and understand the whole situation. Our relationship has always had its ups and downs, like any other. But this feels different. This feels like a breaking point. I can't see a way forward without some kind of resolution. I need to know the truth, but I also need to find a way to forgive her if we're going to move past this. The next few days will be crucial. We need to have a real, honest conversation about what's going on. I need to hear her side, understand why she felt the need to confide in someone else, and figure out if we can rebuild what's been broken. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take time, but I'm willing to try. For the sake of our unborn child, for the sake of the life we've built together, I have to try. I just hope she's willing to meet me halfway. Update 2. My wife admitted to an affair. Not sure if posting something on my profile will be seen by anyone, but I don't feel like making another update in a subreddit. Today my wife asked me to stay home from work so we could talk. She spent all day yesterday in bed, trying to get me to feel sorry for her. I paid absolutely no attention to her and ended up leaving the house to go to my family's Super Bowl party. I wasn't in the mood to go, but I wasn't going to sit at home with her either. It really bothered her that I left. She kept texting me things like, "Who just leaves like that? When something like this is happening, who is that cold and callous that they just leave to go to a party?" I stayed home today to talk to her. She was full of tears, saying she's so sorry. I sat there, listening to her apologies, trying to process everything. She said she didn't know how to stop once it started. The attention was addictive, and she got swept up in the excitement. According to her, she really was going to the gym twice a day because she likes going there. That's where her friends are. It makes her feel good. It's fun for her. She met this guy there, and he started flirting with her. Everyone likes him. He's one of the most popular guys there. I didn't realize there were popular people at gyms. She admitted that she flirted back but didn't mean anything by it. She didn't reciprocate very much at first, but he gave her butterflies, and she just found herself flirting back without thinking. She said it felt like when she had a crush on somebody in school when she was younger. They started texting. At first, it was just friendly and nothing sexual for several months, but she'd feel giddy every time she got a message from him. She was really attracted to him but told him that she was married, and there could never actually be anything between them. But things escalated. The messages became more frequent and more intimate. She admitted that the flirting made her feel alive and desirable, something she hadn't felt in a while. The intensity of her workouts increased as she spent more time at the gym, hoping to run into him. She assured me that she never intended for things to go as far as they did. She swore that nothing physical ever happened, that it was just texting and flirting, but the emotional betrayal cut deep. However, according to her, he kept flirting with her anyway and said, "Sure, we won't cross the line." Until they did cross the line. She said she had tried to resist it for a while, but then one day they kissed. She admitted to enjoying it, but also feeling that it was wrong. She must not have felt that bad because she slept with him for the first time later that night. She described it as falling in love with somebody for the first time. All she could think about was him. Is she in love with him? She doesn't know. Is this baby mine? She thinks so, but there's always a small chance it could be his. He always uses a condom, so she doesn't think it's his baby, but they were sleeping together at the time she got pregnant. She says she loves me. She can't help that there's just this huge spark between the two of them. She doesn't know if she loves him. She doesn't know if the baby is mine. She doesn't know why she did this. She doesn't know what she thinks we should do. I sat there, trying to process everything she was saying. I felt as though everything in my universe was collapsing. This wasn't just a fleeting indiscretion, it was a full-blown affair. This was a serious issue, not merely a transient transgression. The physical betrayal, the intense emotional intensity, and the uncertainty surrounding the baby were all too much to process. I asked her why she didn't stop when she realized she was developing feelings for him. She said she didn't mean for it to happen. She thought it was just harmless flirting at first, but it spiraled out of control. She insisted she never wanted to hurt me, but she couldn't deny how she felt when she was around him. It was like an addiction, she said. Hearing her talk about him with such intensity was like a knife to the heart. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. Part of me wanted to scream at her for destroying our marriage, but another part of me just felt an overwhelming sense of loss. The woman I thought I knew, the life we had built together, all seemed to be slipping away. The moment that really sealed my decision was when she asked, "You would really leave me if it's not your baby, wouldn't you?" I couldn't believe she had the audacity to ask that. My response was immediate and unambiguous. "Of course I'm leaving you. I wouldn't raise another man's child." She seemed genuinely shocked by my firm stance. "Really? With all we share in our past, you won't even think about it?" she questioned, as if the idea of me staying should be a given. I was resolute. No, I would never consider it. I asked her about the baby again, needing to know if there was any certainty. She repeated that she thinks it's mine but admitted that there's a chance it could be his. That's when she agreed to get a DNA test, her agreement laced with tears. She broke down crying, saying she's scared and confused, that she doesn't want to lose me, but she doesn't know how to fix this. She tearfully confided, as though I was supposed to feel sorry for her predicament. "I don't know who this woman is." She was crying the whole time, but not tears of an ashamed or sorry person. They were tears for herself and meant to try to make me feel bad. Feel bad for what? That her heart is apparently so torn. Her emotional display felt manipulative, an attempt to pull at my heartstrings and make me reconsider my stance based on sympathy rather than genuine reconciliation or understanding. It frustrated me, this apparent tactic of hers to shift the narrative, making her the one deserving of pity, while I stood there, struggling with the potential upheaval of my entire life. The more I gave it some thought, the more it appeared that her tears were perhaps shed for the awareness that her actions had irreparably harmed something valuable, as well as for the current situation. Even so though, it didn't feel really sincere. Rather, it seemed more like a fear of the repercussions of one's acts than a remorse for them. I left the house again, needing space to clear my head. I went for a long walk, replaying our conversation over and over in my mind. Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How did we get here? What had gone so wrong that she turned to someone else for the feelings she should have gotten from me? I thought about our future, about the baby. If it is mine, how do we move forward? Can I ever trust her again? Can we rebuild what's been broken? If the baby isn't mine, what then? Do I stay and raise a child fathered by another man, or do I walk away from everything we've shared? In the days that followed, as we awaited the DNA test, our home became a silent battleground. Our interactions were minimal and fraught with an unspoken tension. Each of us was lost in our thoughts, pondering the potential outcomes and their implications. I struggled with feelings of betrayal and anger, while also mourning the relationship we once had, which now seemed like a distant memory. Navigating this crisis was shaping up to be one of the most challenging periods of my life, but I was determined to face it with clarity and a firm resolve to emerge stronger, regardless of the outcome. I did ask her if she'd get the result of a paternity test. I asked her to please not hurt me further by keeping me in limbo about that for months. She said she doesn't want to, so no test happens. Please follow up my story in part 2. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. In the busy city center, there was a hospital called St. Michael's. Here, life and death were always close by, in the narrow hallways and clean rooms. I'm Dr. Mary Harper. My life at the hospital was very different from my life at home with my husband John. Our marriage used to be happy, filled with laughter and dreams. But things had slowly changed, and I was dealing with a reality I never expected. I was a well-respected surgeon at St. Michael's. My days and nights were filled with the constant demands of my job. The hospital was a safe haven for me. Here, I could focus on saving lives and forget about the growing problems with John, even for a short time. My love story began within the hospital walls. We met by chance, talking over patient charts and during coffee breaks. Our love felt strong, like it could overcome any difficulty. But lately John seemed far away. He wasn't as warm and friendly anymore. He worked late at the office a lot and made secret phone calls, thinking Mary wouldn't notice. Then came a message that broke my heart. It was a picture from someone I didn't know, showing John with another woman. It was a terrible betrayal, much worse than any injury she'd ever seen in the operating room. In the days that followed, I worked even harder than before, if that was even possible. The hospital hallways, filled with the sounds of people fighting to survive, became my hiding place. I did my job automatically, talking to colleagues and patients in a professional way that hid her inner turmoil. At home, conversations with John were tense, with long silences and questions left unsaid. I wanted to yell at him and demand answers, but fear held my back. I feared the truth, what it meant for our marriage and the life they'd built together. Even though the hospital was familiar, it now felt like a mirror reflecting the changes in my life. Just like I dealt with different medical problems, I knew I would eventually have to face the truth about my marriage. It was scary not knowing what would happen, but I understood that healing, any kind of healing, meant facing the pain head on. So, with each step through the busy hospital, I carried not just the hopes of my patients, but also the weight of my own heartbreak. It was a delicate balance I managed day by day, moment by moment. As I prepared to face the truth about John's betrayal, I found a strength I didn't know I had. This strength came not just from being a surgeon, but from my journey as a woman dealing with the complexities of love, loss, and the possibility of a new beginning. The evening I discovered John's betrayal, I was late, the hospital demanding every ounce of my attention. By the time I left, the night had wrapped the city in its quiet, indifferent embrace. I remember thinking I'd grab something to eat on the way home, a silent concession to the empty apartment that awaited me. As I navigated the evening traffic, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, expecting another message from John about working late or another last-minute business dinner. But it wasn't from him. An unknown number. Curiosity overcame caution, and I opened the message at the next red light. The photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, a digital taunt. And there it was, John, unmistakably him, with a woman I didn't recognize. They were close, too close, her hand on his chest, laughter frozen on their faces. The message beneath the photo was simple, just 2 words, but they hit me as hard as a physical blow. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, the light turning green unnoticed. The cars behind me honked, jolting me back to reality. I drove home in a daze, the image burning behind my eyes, every detail seared into memory. The apartment was dark when I arrived, silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city. I sat at the kitchen table, the phone lying there like an accusation. My mind raced questions, scenarios, justifications. But the photo, that damning evidence, offered no escape from the truth. I remember the day clearly. It was a typical evening. I was tidying up after dinner, waiting for John to come home. He was late again, something I had grown accustomed to, given his demanding job. But that night, as I picked up his suit from the floor to hang it, a piece of paper fell out. Curious, I picked it up, unfolding it to find a hotel receipt dated 2 days back, for a room booked under John's name. My heart sank. It wasn't just the receipt, it was the realization that all the late nights, the missed dinners, weren't sacrifices for his career but for someone else. A sickening detail jumped out at me, a handwritten note he scrawled on the back in lipstick. Room 412. Don't be late, darling. The blue drained from my face. This wasn't just a business meeting, a late client dinner. This was a deliberate rendezvous. A secret whispered promise. The confrontation that followed was inevitable. The clock on the microwave blinked at 1:00 a.m. John still wasn't home. The silence in our apartment screamed louder than any fight. The hotel receipt in my hand felt like ice. John's name a cruel accusation. A burning jealousy, hot and sharp, twisted in my gut. Images of John laughing with some other woman filled my head. Every imagined touch, every joke, felt like a betrayal. Was this why he was working late? Why did a strange perfume linger on him? Cold fury replaced the desperate hope clinging to me. I snatched my keys, my movements fueled by hurt and anger. The car roared to life, a pale echo of the storm inside me. Streetlights blurred as I raced through the deserted city, envy twisting every woman walking hand in hand with a man into a potential rival. The fancy hotel loomed ahead, a symbol of my growing dread. My hands trembled on the wheel as I parked, each step towards the entrance a battle against shaky legs. The heavy doors whooshed open, revealing a scene that stole my breath. There, bathed in warm light, stood John. His arm was around a beautiful woman, their laughter a symphony that scraped against my raw heart. Jealousy, a ravenous beast, roared to life, consuming every rational thought. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a betrayal fueled by a desire I couldn't compete with. The fight was inevitable, but my weapon wouldn't be logic. It would be the burning fury of a love choked by jealousy. Tears streamed down my face as I delivered a stinging slap to the woman's cheek. Ignoring John's shouts echoing through the hotel lobby, I bolted towards my car. Consumed by hurt and anger, I slammed my foot on the accelerator, desperate to escape and return home. The dream of our happy life together shattered. I aimed to pack my bags and leave him immediately. But fate had a cruel twist in store for me. Suddenly, disaster struck. The brakes failed entirely, and my car careened out of control, crashing into the roadside fence. Silence descended, a stark contrast to the chaos of moments before. As the quiet settled, the sounds of a distant ambulance siren pierced the night. Bathed in the soft glow of the nightlights, a wave of memories washed over me, happy moments, culminating in the image of John proposing, his vows echoing in my head. My eyelids fluttered shut, tears still clinging to my lashes. Was this the end? Update. 6 months have passed since I slipped into a deep sleep. When I finally woke up, I wasn't in my familiar surroundings. I was in a strange place, and next to me was Jenny, my close friend from high school. We'd been friends for over 10 years. Relief washed over Jenny's face as I regained consciousness. But there was also a hint of something unspoken in her eyes. Jenny excused herself to answer a phone call. When she returned a few minutes later, she took a deep breath and began to explain what happened after my accident. John, my cheating husband, had been following me in his car that night, with the woman from the hotel still by his side. They were talking and laughing as if nothing was wrong. Then, my car crashed. John saw it happen, but he did nothing. He just watched from a distance and called an ambulance, a final cold act of charity before leaving the scene. He drove away, seemingly free from any responsibility. It was hard to believe the police showed my current guardian, Jenny, the footage from my car's dashcam. The story gets worse. While I lay unconscious in the hospital, John and his lover continued their extravagant vacation. They didn't care about my well-being. To fuel their lavish lifestyle, John even stole all my savings and used it to buy a luxury apartment for them to live in together. But the most satisfying twist was yet to come. As the stunned guests erupted in a cacophony of whispers and gasps, I walked away, head held high. John, his facade crumbling, clung desperately to Lily. Perhaps there was a flicker of genuine love in his eyes, but it was overshadowed by the betrayal that burned in my gut. I had foolishly expected an apology, a shred of remorse, but there was only a deafening silence. Later that night, John materialized at my doorstep, his demeanor a stark contrast to the bluster he'd displayed earlier. He was a desperate man now, threatening me to stay away from his beloved, while our divorce was still being finalized. The audacity of it all. The man who'd betrayed me in the worst way possible now dared to try and control me. The depth of his betrayal was a gaping wound, a constant reminder of the love I'd so blindly offered. But I was done being a victim. I finalized the divorce, ensuring I received every penny I deserved. John and Lily, tainted by their actions, were both ferried from the hospital. Now, with Lily pregnant, I couldn't help but wonder how John would manage to support his growing family. My current mission? Watching John's carefully constructed life crumble around him. A discreetly hired investigator kept tabs on his movements, and through carefully placed whispers, I ensured no pharmacy or hospital would even consider his application. They had sown the seeds of their destruction, and now, they were reaping the bitter harvest. Days turned into weeks, each one a slow burn for John. Lily's belly grew bigger, a constant reminder of the mess he'd created. He lost his good job and was stuck with any odd work he could find. These jobs left him sore and tired, but they barely paid the bills. With a baby on the way, it wasn't enough. Fueled by anger, I came up with a plan. I hired a guy, a big guy with a booming voice, to pretend to be a boss who needed a gardener. When John showed up for the interview, hope lit up his face. He looked rougher than before, but finding work was a big relief. He agreed to everything without realizing I was the one pulling the strings. In a way, I felt good about it. I pictured John sweating under the sun, regretting everything with every ache and pain. But things didn't go as planned. John did every job, no matter how hard, without complaining. He worked like a man fighting for something precious, his family, his unborn child's future. Lily's due was coming up, and John, ever the loving husband, wanted to get her something nice. But he had no money. Shamefaced, he went to the boss, me, in disguise. John's jaw hit the floor when he saw me. The fake boss greeted him loudly, trying too hard to be cheerful. He called me the hostess, to keep up the act. John's voice was barely a whisper as he asked for a loan. My fake boss, acting his part well, shook his head and said, pretending not to know me, "She's new. Can't give out loans yet." John slowly understood everything. He ignored the dirt on his clothes and the tiredness in his face and turned to me, the woman he'd hurt so much. His voice shaky with worry, begged for my help. He wasn't asking for himself anymore, but for Lily, the one who stuck by him through everything. I watched him fall apart. A mix of feelings churned inside me, anger, satisfaction, and something else I couldn't place. Maybe even a little pity. John's unexpected devotion to his family threw my whole revenge plan out of whack. As he knelt before me, his pride broken, begging me to save his wife, I had a big decision to make. Lily's pregnancy brought sunshine into their home. Their son, a healthy little guy, completed their happiness. John, a brand new dad, couldn't get enough of the baby. Lily, glowing with new motherhood, seemed content. They were a picture-perfect family, at least on the outside. But after 6 months, things shifted. The money problems John had been trying to hide started to wear on Lily. The joy in her eyes faded, replaced by worry lines. John worked any job he could find, exhausted but determined to provide. Lily, meanwhile, found someone else at the station. A doctor, charming and seemingly understanding. What started as friendly chats turned into a full-blown affair. The promises she made to John, to face anything together, vanished. You, the narrator, somehow discovered this betrayal. Furious, you got proof, pictures and videos, and sent them to John. John was taking care of their son when the package arrived. Seeing the evidence ripped the rug out from under him. The baby's cries went unanswered as John's world crumbled. He confronted Lily, his voice thick with hurt and confusion. Lily confessed everything, but John's reaction surprised everyone. Maybe it was the sight of their innocent child, or the shock of it all, but he forgave her. Perhaps he desperately clung to the family he'd built. But fate had other plans. Racked with guilt or maybe wanting a fresh start, Lily left that night. All she left was a sorry letter. John, devastated and alone, faced a harsh reality. He was a single dad, drowning in debt, solely responsible for raising their child. Then, tragedy struck. Their son fell ill with a high fever and didn't make it. Grief and despair swallowed John. He couldn't afford the funeral. The debt to you, a constant reminder of his mistakes, felt like a vice tightening around him. With each blow, he broke a little more. He became a ghost of his former self, wandering the streets, a broken man searching for a family he'd lost. This is where John's story ends. A man who paid dearly for his past and a victim of Lily's selfishness. The question remains, will John find some peace, or will his loss consume him forever? Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.